Welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast, where trauma survivors become healthy thrivers. Each month, we'll feature a theme in the trauma recovery and empowerment field. To promote your recovery, healing, and learning how to build dreams, here's your host, Karen Robinson, transformational coach and therapist.
Hello, welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast. This morning, our guest is Dr. Dravon James. Dr. Dravon is the founder of the Next Step Leadership Academy, a company that empowers women to use everything that shows up in their lives, good, bad, or otherwise, to reach their next level of greatness. Dr. Dravon is a transformation specialist using her everyday peace philosophy to coach women on how to master goal attainment. She is the author of Freedom is Your Birthright. So welcome to the show, Dr. Dravon.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited for our time together today.
So what in your bio, because I know it was extensive, and even before the call, you told me that you're an actress. I hope that's not a secret.
Yes.
So I came up like, So tell us a little more about you that I didn't capture.
Oh my gosh. Well, you said in my bio that I am a transformational expert, and I tell people that is because I strongly believe, but beyond believing, I know that anything that you really want to accomplish in this lifetime, you can accomplish. That does not mean that it will not come with sacrifice and a lot of hard work, but we do that anyway, right? So I've been really blessed to take my life seriously and take my dreams seriously. So as a little girl in the third grade, I decided that I wanted to be an actress. My mom decided that she did not want me to be an actress, by the way, but I decided that I wanted to be an actress. And so after I had my daughter, who is now 23 years old, when she was about 3 months old, and I was already practicing pharmacy, I decided, how could I tell her to follow her dreams if I don't follow mine? So I took some acting classes and I jumped right in. And, I've been fortunate. I've done a lot of theater. The biggest thing I've done that people tell me sometimes still that they remember me from was I did 3 seasons on HBO's The Wire. And so right now I'm in a couple of shows on Tubi television, Black Therapy, which I had rehearsal for yesterday, and I'm in a stage play here in Baltimore to bring about the awareness of the opioid addiction called Serenity House, which is what I have rehearsal for this morning. So I've done that, and it's exciting. I love it. So, and this is all about transforming ourselves. We get to be whoever we want to be. Right? Make a decision. It doesn't have to be for the rest of your life, but really get involved, get passionate about becoming the person that you want to become in that moment.
That's so beautiful. Yeah. So I am a big, I love acting. I acted in high school. I lived in Canada at the time, and that was just so much fun. It was so freeing. I grew up in a dysfunctional home. So being on stage and just being whoever I wanted was so fun. So kudos for you on that. But one of my passions is reading. So I want to hear more about your book, like what inspired the book. Give us a couple of tidbits about the book. I haven't read it yet. I would love to. So tell us more about it.
So the book is a lesson for me in what they say, making lemonade from lemons, right? It was a point in my life when I tell people I had the trifecta of pain. So if you follow me, I tell people that everyday peace, we focus on the health, the wealth, and relationships, getting balance and synergy in those areas. And at the time I had been diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. That was my health issue. I had been fired from my job. That was my wealth issue. And my 20-year marriage was beginning on a decline, which ultimately ended in divorce. So that was my relationship issue. So I had like what I considered a trifecta of pain. And because of my health, I was having a hard time doing long-term, like standing tasks. And I was just preparing dinner for my children one day. And I had to keep lying down on the kitchen floor in between, like stirring the pot, lie down on the floor to get cooled down and all that kind of stuff. And while I was lying on the floor on this particular, lying on the floor, and I thought to myself, how do you feel right now? And physically, I felt not good. And there were, I felt fear about money. I felt fear about my relationship, but overall I felt encouraged. And I was wondering where that was coming from. Like I felt this sense of, oh, this is a new adventure and I'm going to be okay. And I thought in that moment, I couldn't be the only person in the world going through this, right? Whatever. Maybe my details were different, but there were definitely other people, other women who had health issues, who had relationship issues, who had financial issues. And I wanted to give them that ability to have this overwhelming sense of well-being, even in the midst of what we call a crisis. And that's how I started writing the book, and saying freedom is your birthright, right? We may not be able to choose the circumstances, but we can choose what the circumstances mean.
Very cool. Okay. When you say transformation specialist, tell me more about what that looks like. How do you practice that day to day? Do you have clients that you also help them transform as well, or you just know that you are naturally able to do it for your life? Tell us more about that.
Right. So I believe it's teachable and duplicatable. And one of the things I tell people at my job as a pharmacist, right, I am a systems person. So I like to look at things and figure out, how can I make this duplicatable? How can I make this almost run automatically? So when I work with my life coach clients, which are both men and women, but in my Next Step Leadership Academy, I chose to focus just on women because I started hearing particular blocks that women put up to, the I'm not enough, I don't know enough, this is not my season, and all that kind of stuff. And I wasn't really hearing that with my male clients. So I thought, there's something there that maybe this is being ingrained in us. So, so what we do is transformation is to really look at what is right now. What is it that you see right now, right? And looking at life like this, saying that if I want to change, the room that I'm sitting in now has like gray color walls. If I wanted these walls to be yellow, I must first be aware and accept that they are not yellow, that they are gray. Without any shame, guilt, or condemnation. I don't have to put a lot of emotion behind that, but just knowing what is now. What do I like about now? What is it that I would like to see different? Getting that sense of awareness. That is so pivotal. And just getting that sense of awareness and knowing what is and what would I like to see. So this is what I see. This is what I would like to see. Just that process there. And then working with a life coach or a trusted friend or a clergy, somebody that you really trust to help you say, okay, what are the steps, tiny baby steps that we can take from going from what is to what we would like to see. And that's how you transform your life. We don't get ourselves overwhelmed. You eat an elephant one bite at a time. So we don't get overwhelmed with, oh my gosh, I'm all the way over here and I want to get all the way over there. And there's 45 steps. And we say, okay, what's the first step? Okay, well, let's break that down. What do we need from there? Let's get some goals in place. Who do we need to support us and things of that nature? And then we may find along the way that, oh my gosh, when I start doing that work of discovery, I realize, this is maybe not even that end goal. I wanted something else, but I had to get on this pathway of self-discovery, of self-awareness to even know that this is my true self. This is my true passion. And I just like to talk about true passion for a moment, because a lot of times when I work with my female clients, they think that a true passion has to be a lifelong thing. We get in situations, mothering, becoming a spouse, we get in these situations for life, right? We are nurturing and committed people, but your passion could be just for a season. It doesn't mean that you're going to want to do, in my case, I've wanted to be an actress since I was in the third grade. It's been a passion that's held on. But there have been other things. I like doing crafting for a season. I like, other things for a season. It doesn't mean that I want to carry this for the rest of my life. It's okay to change midstream and say, you know what? Did that, tried it. I want to try something else. That's all part of transforming and getting to discover so many beautiful parts of ourselves.
Beautiful. Yeah. And how many women would you say that you work with when you have hear those negative beliefs, like this isn't my time or I can't do this? How many of them would you say have come from some sort of trauma?
I don't have the exact numbers on that, but I can tell you that how we define trauma, most people have come from some kind of trauma. I've never in my experiences of life coach, ever worked with a person, male or female, that said, I had the ideal situation in my life, right? It's different
Otherwise, they
for
wouldn't
different
meet
people.
you. Right.
Right. So you'll hear their story like, oh, that doesn't sound so bad. But for their makeup, that was horrible. And then, we'll tell somebody our story. They're like, oh yeah, that's, so I think it's individualized. If you feel that the events in your life have caused you some trauma, okay, though, what can we do about it today? How can we get a forgiveness and a gratitude practice that is sustainable and produces consistent growth, and lets you take that stuff in your life and utilize it as a stepping stone to get to where you want to go? Because many times we don't choose the circumstances that we find ourselves in, right? A lot of them are just not even because of our past decisions. We just kind of find ourselves there. You look at like you mentioned at the beginning of the show, you grew up in this dysfunctional family of no fault of your own, right? But you find yourself there. And so since we're there, we get to an age of maturity, what can we take from those experiences that can help us to, as a stepping stone, get to where we want to be and become the person that we want to become?
Very well said. Yeah. Okay. And what else do you think would be helpful? Like, my audience is generally women that are 45 or older. People that tend to listen to my show tend to be survivors, either of childhood abuse, sexual assault, domestic violence, betrayal traumas. What do you think? You talked earlier about it starts with one step and not to get overwhelmed. What do you think is like a classic first step for many women who are just not feeling that they're in their groove, that they are living a life of purpose?
Oh, I love this question. And thank you so much, because I think your audience represents so many of us as women, having to deal with so many disappointments. And like I mentioned earlier, things that were circumstances that we didn't choose those circumstances. They sort of chose us, right? And so reframing how we view ourselves, I think, is the first step, right? Mm-hmm. And so I talk in my book about freedom being your birthright, right? We could view ourselves as the victim, right? And that's sort of a powerless position. We may have been powerless over what happened to us, but I like, for myself and for the clients that I work with, to change that V to the victor, meaning that I am telling you the story of something that I went through, which by the virtue of the fact that I am telling you the story means that something that I went to did not defeat me, right? I survived it, right? So I'm here telling you what happened, what tried to take me out, what tried to destroy me. It failed because I'm telling you about it, right? I get to tell you about it. So I'm going to tell you the story about how I defeated this, how I overcame that, how I'm dealing with this. That makes me the victor, right? And I love that position. I look back at my own life, which is just dotted with all this trauma and disappointment and betrayal, as you mentioned, and heartbreak. And I always say, so this event occurred, and my goodness, had I not been me with the previous painful experiences, that would have destroyed me. It would have destroyed me. However, I was able to draw on the strength of, you know what, I've been through this before. This has happened to me before. And some people use that and they get really down. Like, can you believe I've had a life of tragedy? No, what I'm seeing is this amazing, powerful woman where all these forces have come against you and you've defeated every last one of them. My goodness, they don't know who they're playing with, right? So now that we change that energy from victim to victor, how are we going to use those experiences? How are we going to maybe make different decisions? And when we start to get down, I use a smile journal. We write down every time we catch ourselves smiling, but I also use my overcome journal, right? And I had to use that. I was married for 27 years. I had a painful divorce, and I had to write, this is what I've overcome. This is me. And I'm looking at this and I'm reading, I'm like, this chick is a superwoman. You gotta be kidding me. Women who have survived things need to write that. So I overcame this. It doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt anymore. Of course it hurts. We're human, right? But it did not. We will use that and we will build with it. It's the tool that's in our tool chest. We have to build with it.
I love this idea of a smile journal and then did you say overcome journal?
Overcome journal. Yeah, this is what I overcame. Yeah.
Where did you get this clever idea to have these two separate journals? Well, the title of the journals. Yeah.
Right. So as I deal with, work with women and hear so much of my own journey reflected back to me. And I think to myself, as we're working together, one of the principles in Everyday Peace is that everything that shows up in your life, the wanted and the unwanted circumstances, have shown up for one reason, and that is to bow down and serve you as you consciously build to your next level of greatness. So you have to do that with consciousness. You have to say, hey, this thing that I believe is horrible, right? I believe it's horrible. I don't really know the future, right? But it certainly doesn't feel good, right? But it's happened. And if I believe, like Einstein did, that I live in a world, in a universe that supports me and is not against me, then I believe that that thing, no matter how painful it is, can be used for my success. It can be used for my success. So that's how I thought, this is what I've overcome. I've overcome this. And that lets me know that I am powerful. Every time I say I've overcome something, that is a reinforcement that this woman is powerful. Oh my goodness. You overcame that. You overcame that. You overcame that. And then on the back end, women would say, yes, but. Okay, hold on to the but. Hold on to that. Let's just deal with the fact that, do you realize how many women would not be able to even express themselves? That would have just shut them down. They would never be able to love again or to get out and work again. You're doing all of these things, right? Carrying this. You're an amazing woman. So we just start writing down the things we overcome, and we read and we talk about that. And I said, we talk about it from a place of strength. Like, this is you telling your younger self, girl, you'll be fine. We're going to get the help that we need. We're going to use that. It's unfortunate. We're not going to diminish how painful it was. It was painful. And they should not have done it. Whatever happened should not have happened. But it did. And it did not kill us. It did not defeat us. We have an opportunity. We're going to learn to utilize that stuff. So that's what the Overcome Journal. And then the Smile Journal is because I tell women all the time, we are happier than we give ourselves credit for.
Explain that.
No one ever asks you. That's not a popular conversation. A popular conversation for women is, I'm stressed, I'm overwhelmed, I'm overworked. That's our popular conversation. When my children were small, I joined a women's group, a mother's group, because I didn't have any support network with me. And I wanted to be around other women. And when I got there to that support group the first day, it was a competition of how, you slept, I only slept 4 hours, or I only slept 3, I only slept 2. And it was like a badge of honor. And I really wasn't looking for that. I was looking for us to find ways to do positive things. I just needed some positive girlfriend time, but it really became a competition of how miserable we could be. And I realized that was a lot of our conversation. Oh, my husband doesn't do this. Oh, the children don't do this. I wanted to celebrate the good things about us. I said, well, no one asked you, how many times a day did you smile? What makes you happy? Right? And once we start changing our focus, because we know that life goes in the direction of our most dominant thoughts. So if we're more frequently thinking about how happy I am, we're gradually navigating towards things that make us happier. So that's why there's a smile journal. And I'll tell people, start off by just, an hour a day. When you catch yourself smiling, write down, why did I smile? It could be, I smiled. One day I smiled because I saw a little girl walking, and she had some there was the cutest little red shoes, and they lit up. I smiled because they were sparkly. But when she started walking, they lit up. It just, oh my gosh, right? So
and that lit you up.
I caught myself smiling. I got back to my office and I wrote it down really quickly. Like these shoes, they made me smile. And so at the end of an hour, we stop it and you go home the night and you just write down these opportunities and what happens in that smile, the endorphins that are produced, right? we remember on autopilot all the things that went wrong during the day. We get in the bed at night, we can't even sleep. We're plagued with it. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have ate that. I shouldn't have, all night long. But if we get in the bed and we say, let me look at that smile journal. Oh, I smiled over the red shoes. I smiled because my coworker said this. I smiled because I saw that. I smiled because I saw a sunrise. I saw a sunset. It changes the way it rewires our brain, where we're looking for good. We're wired for good. We're attracted to good instead of being attracted to more painful and disappointing activities.
That's really beautiful. It reminds me of the gratitude journal and looking at your life, like for all the things that we could be thankful for. It's a different spin on it. It's beautiful.
Right. Because gratitude, and I have a strong gratitude practice, but I know sometimes when I work with my clients who have a lot of trauma, gratitude seems really hard because they're like, I can't think of anything to be grateful for. I've been there. Right. And so I said, well, let's look at the amount of times that you smile in the day, and you do smile during the day. You do. You may just smile. You hear something on TV and it may be a sarcastic smile. We jot it down. Right? I smile because I think the reporter is an idiot. So you still smile. You still got those endorphins.
Even if it's a half a smile, we're going to count it at the beginning. No, I really like that too. Go ahead.
I said, we're going to count those smiles. You're right.
Yeah. I really like it too because different ways we put things the words matter, and what might not work for one client will help another client. So it's good to have all those tools in our toolbox. And when you're talking, I get the impression I'm talking to a therapist and a preacher. What do you think of me saying those two things? Has that happened to you before?
People say I would not want to diminish the honorable practice of therapy because I'm a life coach, and the preacher thing, I get that so often. I took a Myers-Briggs test and it came back. That would have been my profession, but my doctorate degree is in pharmacy, right? So it's in healthcare. So I practiced for over 30 years. So I have a lot of experience helping people, and I was a consultant in healthcare issues. But I think I had to attribute this back to my mom, because when I was growing up, for most of my childhood, I went to church on Saturday, all day Saturday, to what they call a New Thought religion, and then all day Sunday to a Pentecostal church. If you know anything about Pentecostal religion, all day. And so I think where that comes from is, nothing is wasted in this journey. I didn't know that I would end up being this big, I would say, advocate for peace, which I define as wholeness, completeness, nothing missing, nothing broken, totality, just the whole thing, the wanted and the unwanted being designed for our good. But I didn't know way back then I'd be an advocate for this type of lifestyle. But I think all those things and all those experiences that we talk about and we classify as good or bad, happy or sad, I think all of that came together and created the woman that I am today and the woman that I still want to become.
Yeah, I really like that. One of my grandmothers was Catholic and the other one was Pentecostal. So I went to those two different churches a lot.
Right, that's a ride, right?
Yeah, so that's very interesting because you're right. Like our experiences, they just shape who we are. And so even if we may not have enjoyed pieces of it at the time, without that we wouldn't be who we are. And who we are is really, really important, for our next steps. Yeah.
I couldn't say that any better. Who we are right now, and I think your listening audience sounds like such a precious group of women that I really resonate with. Right, who you are right now in this moment is really important. Do not push past that woman, the woman that you are right now. I know we're always trying to become, the woman that our best self, right? But in this moment, right now, whatever time you're hearing this broadcast, you are who you are meant to be in this moment. Enjoy her, celebrate her, celebrate her. She didn't get here by the easy path. We all know that there were heartaches and disappointments and all of that. Celebrate her for showing up for you in this moment, right? That's how you get to your next elevated moment, not by pushing past who showed up for you today, the woman that you are today. She's amazing.
That was beautiful too. You get all kinds of beautiful little gems. So,
And my things that I share with my clients, and I use it in my own life because we're in this together. I wish sometimes, I could, in my mind, I have this vision of all of us women together, having this moment, holding hands and just sort of rocking back and forth and just celebrating every path of this journey, each and every one of us. Our energies are so necessary. We are so necessary, and we really got to accept that.
I agree. In your coaching or your program, the Next Step Leadership Academy, can you tell us a little bit about that? For example, do you have coaching group programs? Do you just do one-on-one? Are there courses? Share a little bit more about that.
Yes, so I'd love to. Thank you. So I do have one-on-one coaching clients, but I have not taking one-on-ones anymore. I do strictly group clients because I feel that there's synergy in the group and there's lots of abilities to do more people at one time. But they're small groups, no more than 10 women, and we go for 12 weeks. And so Next Step Leadership Academy is really about helping women get to their next step. And I do focus on health, wealth, and relationship in all of them, right? So we talk about that because that is the totality of how you develop your life experiences, right? So we talk about all three of those. A lot of times people come to me, the coaching class itself is called Leaders in High Heels. And so I get a lot of business women who come, but I always encourage people, you don't have to be trying to get to the C-suite in your business. You don't have to be even trying to run a business. The most important person that will ever lead to greatness is ourselves. Okay. And in fact, if we don't master ourselves, right, everything else will just be superficial. So even if your desire is to get to the C-suite, now I always tell this story because it's an amazing story that really impacted me. There was a woman that came into my group coaching class, and she was high executive. I mean, really, really high executive. I was like, oh, you chose me. Okay. And she said, oh, yes, I heard your program. It resonated with me. And so we end up working one-on-one together afterwards, and she did eventually get offered this C-suite that she was so coveted and she really wanted to be there. And when she got to the offer and all the work that she did to get there, and I'm of course with her every step of the way as her life coach, but in her leadership coach, as she got there, she called me one day. She goes, I am so sick to my stomach right now. And I thought she meant like with excitement. She goes, I am conflicted. I've worked my whole life for this, but I don't want it. Now, what I knew had happened in that course is that she really discovered what was important to her. That C-suite was important to her career, was important to the people that were around her, maybe to her family, but to her, that wasn't important. She had children who she felt were at a pivotal point in their lives, and she wanted to be more involved and not less involved. And that particular job, she'd be less involved. And so she eventually decided to turn down that position, to stay with the company that she was and stay in the position that she was, because it provided the life more balance that she wanted. And that moved me to tears, because that sense of self-awareness to say, I was just chasing a dream my whole life that wasn't mine. Right? That's how you meet people who look like they're at the top and they're like so depressed, and you got to find out what your dreams are, and they don't need to be validated by anybody but you.
Yeah, that's a wonderful story. It really is. For women that resonate with you and like, oh, that leadership academy, that sounds like that would be a good fit for me right now. How do they find it or find you?
On my website, drdravonjames.com. You can also, I talk about it on my podcast, which is Dr. Dravon James, Everyday Peace, which is on Mind, Body, Spirit FM. And you on all my social media, so those are ways you can get in touch with me. But if you simply just go to my website, there's an area to click on there and fill out information. We'll tell you when we have another class starting. And I would love to have women there. We do great work. And some people say to me all the time, I had a question that came up. They said, what if I'm the only woman? Will you still do it? I said, well, it'll be a one-on-one, but we'll still do it. So I usually do 12 weeks. I'll take a couple weeks off and I'll start another one up.
Okay, good. It's nice to know that it's ongoing. And what's next for you? Are you going to write another book, do you think?
I am writing another book, and I'll tell you guys, I'd love to get feedback. I'm writing a book on forgiveness, and which has really been a pivotal part of my success in life. When you talk about trauma, I've definitely had a lot of it, and I don't think that I would have been able to have a life of transformation if I hadn't had forgiveness practice, a strong forgiveness practice. And so just something that's dropped in my spirit. I didn't know what, I got stuck in the book. I've written a lot of it, but I got stuck and I wanted to write a powerful intro, which talked about how forgiveness shaped my life. And I decided very early on to forgive everything. I don't know, maybe that came from my 2, days in religion, all day for Saturday and Sunday, right? But it did not stop things happening to me that were just so painful. But I knew that I had to forgive and I had to have a practice of forgiving. And so I wanted to share that with the world because forgiveness is a superpower that will propel you quickly to your next level of greatness. Unforgiveness is like having sandbags tied to your arms and you just can't lift. Right? Because you can have the best ideas, the best work ethic, all of that stuff, even a great gratitude practice. But if you're still holding on to stuff that you find unforgivable, and we do know there's a lot of stuff that has happened to us that we're like, what are you? This is crazy. But it only kills us if we don't have a good forgiveness practice. So that's my book that I'm working on now. And just that I said that I think I got my intro. I think I know what I'm going to talk about. So I couldn't think of like what would resonate with people to talk about because there's so much in there in my life that I've had to forgive, as with most people, right? We have things that we had to decide. I'm going to have to let that go. I'm going to have to forgive you for that. Even if you never ask me for forgiveness. How about that?
That's even more intriguing, for lack of better words. Yeah, I think this is a very powerful idea that you have. It's the hardest level in my work as a therapist. That's the hardest level for people, and myself included. Like, I'm not quick to forgive. Like, I really have to process quite a bit and turn to God quite a bit on how to do this. So I think a book that really shows the benefits. And I love that metaphor of the sandbags, because it's true. When we don't forgive, the person that we are ultimately hurting is ourselves. It's not hurting anyone else. It's hurting ourselves. So even just working the baby step of self-forgiveness, like what is it that you blame yourself for or judge yourself for that you could at least start letting go with that? Is how I get my way in with my clients. It's like, okay, what are little pieces of this that we can do at the beginning? Because I think it's hard. I think it's a lot to ask of a woman who's all these horrible things have happened. It's a lot to ask, like, oh, just forgive. But I know you don't mean that. I know you mean a deeper journey.
It is a process. And you touched on something that I struggled with was forgiving myself, right? And for things, forgiving myself without making excuses for my behavior, right? Because I would get into this, well, if I don't have this skill set, or this is why I did it, or just no, honey, I just forgive you. I just forgive you. And I just felt like I was totally unworthy of that. How could you just forgive me? You must want something. I have to do something. No, I just forgive you. I just forgive you. And I thought to myself, wouldn't that be nice? Don't we all want that? Don't I want to be able to, I want to be perfect, but that's not possible, right? But don't I want someone to love me so much that it just brings out the best in me? And when I do fail, when I do make these huge mistakes that seem unforgivable, the person just says, I just forgive you. I just forgive you. That's it. And you hit on it. That's a relationship with a higher power for sure, right? That offers that type of forgiveness. I just forgive you. You've asked, and so I do.
It's that simple. We complicate everything, don't we?
Oh, we do. But I mean, and you're so right to start with ourselves. It was really difficult for me to do that for myself. I could do it for other people, right? But I was holding myself to a different standard. Like, you should know better. How dare you, imposter syndrome, all that kind of like never. So I said, yeah, I got to forgive myself for these things.
That's so interesting, because I think we have to start with self-forgiveness. It's that self-love piece. How can we really truly see and hear and love others if we can't do that for ourselves? Yeah.
Oh, that's so beautiful. That just hearing you say that makes me feel like so soft inside, because that's really where it is. And there's this little girl, I believe, in all of us that's screaming, asking, can you just please forgive me? And somewhere we're that tyrant say, no, I will not. It's like, no.
And that's it.
Do. It's like, I definitely do forgive you. I understand. Even if I don't understand, I still forgive you.
Yeah. Well, you can understand she's hurt. She's been hurt.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of work by Louise Hay, who I really, really love. And she talks a lot about forgiveness. And, I use a lot of her practices when I was going through, and I still do. Forgiveness, I think, is like a practice. They say when you practice medicine and then you practice it for the rest of your life, it is no perfection in this, right? And I think forgiveness is that way too. It's a practice, right? So I'm practicing forgiveness. And that's okay. You meet surgeons who've been practicing surgery for 40, 50 years, right? And they still get to operate, right? So it's still a practice. It has not yet been perfected. And we get to practice forgiveness, and we still get to go into relationships with our practice.
That just blows my mind. I never thought about it as something that is a continuing process of practice. And I think that is very powerful, because it's okay if we don't have it right today. Then we can look at baby steps in this area too. I just think that I'm in a healing program myself, a treatment program. And one of the things that's coming up that we have to work on is all of our resentments. And that's been so powerful, because it looks at like our role in our resentments. Like, it's not all about other people. We have a part, it could be a little part, but thus we still have a part. And I think terms like resentments, lack of trust, these things come back to, can we forgive or not? And I think, as you know, that ourselves is pivotal in that. So you gave me something to think about. Like, forgiveness is not a one-time conversation.
No.
Or a two-time conversation.
A lifetime, right? And sometimes over the same thing, you'll think, gosh, I thought I dealt with it. And it'll just come right back up. And I have to remind myself, oh, yeah, remember you forgave yourself for that? It's like, oh, yeah, I did. And it'll just linger. I said, yeah, but I forgave myself for that. You're right. I did do that. And I forgave myself for that. And I know that, I am that person who strongly believes, and you'll probably see if you were driving beside me in the car, like, this woman is crazy. And probably every woman that I've ever coached, I tell them this, I have these loving conversations with myself in the car when I'm alone, that's when my thoughts start to plague me about my, things that I wish I had done better, or you're not good enough, imposter syndrome and all that stuff. And I'll have those conversations. I'll say, yes, I can understand how you would feel that way, right? If we were operating from a place of shame, guilt, or condemnation. But what I know and believe is that shame and guilt and condemnation will just keep me where I am, right? And there's so many other things I want to do. So what I want to remind you of, Dravon, is that I have forgiven you for that. I have forgiven you for that. And then what happens, because my brain is very, very resistant, my brain says, yeah, but they haven't forgiven you. Right? and I remind myself that I have no control
over
it.
Yeah.
nor should I have control over anyone else. My job is to express my sincere apology, but to be loving enough to allow them their process. Right? And I have these, and I have to keep reminding Dravon of that. Like, that's a practice, keep reminding, saying, oh yeah. And then, that part of myself will settle down for maybe a couple of hours or maybe even a month or two. And then she'll just come right back to the service. And go, remember when you did? So, yes, I remember. And then I have that same with her all over again. And it's just a constant practice. And I have, at least for myself and a lot of women that I have coached, realized that there is this repetition of pain, a pain body, right? I think Eckhart Tolle talks about the pain body, but there's this repetition of thought pattern that until we break that repetition with infusing it with a different way over and over again. But that repetition of thought didn't just happen overnight. We've been doing that and surviving off of that energy forever. It's not that we can just, pluck it out. We've got to lovingly replace it.
I think we could probably talk about this all day. And since you and I both have busy schedules, we can't. What are the final thoughts for today that you could offer my audience? Everything you've said this morning has been very inspirational. But what final words do you have?
Well, so some final action items, because I like to lead with action, like what can you do, right? And so we talked a little bit about gratitude, and I want to tell you that this is my everyday practice, and I like to share it with everybody. I have what I call an active gratitude card that I make every day, because our mind really quickly loves two positions: the past, so it can get into this place of depression, and this in the future, so it can dwell in anxiety, right? So it doesn't have to be clinical depression, it doesn't have to be clinical anxiety, just this worry pattern. And it uses the past and the present and the future to do that. And so I have a active gratitude card that I use to deal with that. And so it's two sides to the card. Really quickly, on the first thing I write down are 3 things that happened yesterday that I am grateful for. And when my mind wants to go to the past, I direct it. I say, oh, I see we're going to the past. These are the 3 items we can think about. I carry that card around with me everywhere. So, and then on the flip side of that card, I write down 3 things that I am grateful for that will happen today, right? And so when my mind wants to go to the future, I bring it straight back to my active gratitude card. Why do I call it active gratitude? Because I forced myself, this is control over me, Dravon. I forced myself to smile as I'm writing it, to get excited tingly from the soles of my feet to the crown of my head, to get really excited. And I smile as I'm writing it. So that reminds me as I get into a state of panic or whatever during the day, feel overwhelmed, I grab that card. My body remembers the sensation of when I wrote that. So it helps me. So I give that to people. It's a tiny tip. You'll start doing it and say, oh, I think this is stupid. Do it anyway. Make it fun.
I love that too. Yeah, make it fun. It has been such a pleasure talking with you today. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening in today. Please join us next week, same day and time. Also, I would love for you to check out my website, healthrivedream.com.